I'm Rebecca, 35. Last month, at my parents' 30th wedding anniversary party in my childhood home, I finally snapped after years of my father's dismissal and credit stealing. As he stood before our 60-strong family gathering, glass in hand, ready to toast their anniversary, I braced myself for the worst. Over the past 30 years, we've been blessed with 3 wonderful kids. Our sons have built stable careers, making us proud. But our daughter, Rebecca, well, she's always been a bit of a dreamer with her tech stuff in Seattle, he said, his voice laced with condescension. She thinks she's running a big deal company, but it's just a bunch of high-tech nonsense. Real success comes from hard, practical work, not playing around with computers. The room fell silent, and I felt the weight of everyone's gazes. For so long, I'd endured his dismissive comments, but this was the last straw. I thought about all the times he'd belittled my achievements and stolen the credit for my hard work. I decided it was time to expose the truth. I grew up in a small town in Oregon. My father, Robert, was a strict and traditional accountant, always believing in a narrow view of success. My mother, Linda, was a kind-hearted schoolteacher who often tried to mediate between my father and me. I was the middle child between my 2 brothers, Tom and Jake. From a young age, I was fascinated by technology. While other 9-year-old girls played with dolls, I spent hours in my attic, taking apart old radios and trying to understand how they worked. One day, I managed to build a simple radio from scrap parts. I ran downstairs, excited to show my father. "Dad, look what I made," I said, beaming. He barely looked up from his ledger. "Rebecca, that's a waste of time. Girls should focus on more ladylike things like sewing or reading." In high school, I excelled in math and science. I spent my junior year developing a unique software for local farmers to manage their crops more efficiently. I worked day and night on this project, and it won first place at the state science fair. The local newspaper even ran an article about it. But my father was nowhere to be seen at the ceremony. He said it was just a silly competition and not worth his time. When it came to college, I wanted to study computer science at Stanford. My SAT scores were excellent, and I had a good chance of getting in. But when I told my father, he was furious. "Absolutely not. Stanford is too expensive, and women don't belong in computer science. You should go to the local community college and study something practical, like business administration." Despite his opposition, I applied to Stanford on my own. I worked part-time at a local diner to save money for the application fees. When I received the acceptance letter with a partial scholarship, my father still wasn't happy. "You'll end up in debt for a degree that won't get you anywhere," he said. At Stanford, I thrived. The campus was full of like-minded people who shared my passion for technology. During my junior year, I developed an algorithm that could predict market trends for small businesses, reducing their financial risks by 25%. I was so excited to share this with my family. But when I called my father, he said, "Rebecca, stop getting carried away. It's just a school project. Focus on getting a real job after graduation." 6 months later, I found out that my father had mentioned my algorithm to his friend, a local business owner. His friend implemented it in his company and was very successful. But he thought it was my father's idea. When I confronted my father, he said, "I just simplified your complex theory to make it useful. You're overreacting." After graduation, I moved to Seattle and got a job at a tech startup. I quickly made a name for myself by improving the company's software architecture, reducing loading times by 35%. My supervisor was impressed and promoted me. When I called home to share the news, my father downplayed it. All these tech companies give fancy titles to make employees feel important. Don't get too excited. But to his friends and neighbors, he boasted about how he'd guided my career. My daughter works for a big tech company in Seattle. "I've always encouraged her interest in technology," he'd say. A few years later, I decided to start my own company, Rebecca Tech Solutions. I had a solid business plan and some initial clients. When I told my father, he was against it. 90% of new businesses fail. You're throwing away a stable job for a pipe dream." Despite his warnings, I went ahead. My company quickly gained a reputation for innovative solutions. We developed a custom database for a large chain of restaurants, which improved their inventory management and reduced food waste by 20%. Industry magazines featured articles about our success. But my father still continued his pattern of private dismissal and public boasting. During our phone calls, he'd question my financial stability. But to others, he claimed he'd helped me build the business. Back at the anniversary party, after my father's cruel toast, I took a deep breath and said, "Dad, since you're so concerned about honesty, let's be honest with everyone here. When I was 9, I built a radio, and you called it a waste of time. In high school, when I won the state science fair, you missed the ceremony. When I got into Stanford, you refused to support me. At Stanford, I developed an algorithm, and you stole it and gave it to your friend. And now, you claim to have helped me build my company, but you've always tried to discourage me." The room was filled with gasps. Many relatives looked shocked, and some started nodding, remembering things differently from my father's stories. My father tried to interrupt me, but I continued. "I've built my company through hard work, not because of your so-called guidance. It's time you stopped taking credit for my achievements." My father's face turned pale. He stammered, "Rebecca, you're exaggerating. I've always wanted the best for you." But the damage was done. My mother stood up and said, "Rebecca, I'm so proud of you for finally speaking up. Your father has been wrong for a long time." My brothers also came to my side, saying they'd always noticed his unfair treatment but hadn't realized the full extent. After the party, things were different. My father called me a few days later. His voice was softer. "Rebecca, I've been thinking. Maybe I've been too hard on you. I'm sorry for some of the things I said." It was a partial apology, but it was a start. 6 months later, Rebecca Tech Solutions landed a major contract with a national corporation. When I called home, my father congratulated me sincerely. He even asked intelligent questions about the project. Standing up to my father at the anniversary party was the turning point. It established boundaries, and he stopped stealing my credit. My company continues to grow, and I've learned that I don't need his approval to be successful. I've found the strength to validate my own achievements and surround myself with people who truly support me.